Through his writing, particularly his collection of letters from prison published under the title Soledad Brother, Jackson would become one of the most prominent and revolutionary black voices speaking from the underworld. Take us back to that moment. What do you think people today need to remember about what was going on in the country at that time and what was going on in the prisons at that time?
You had the war in Vietnam, you had the Civil Rights Movement, and you had, in the South, you had Jim Crow running amok. In the North, you had Jim Crow running amok in the form of a different color. And you had, what the Citizen Project now does is 50 years in the wake of the utilization of the prison industrial complex to control social disupheaval. So now you have, in the 70s, that's when you had the mass incarceration start taking shape.
You know, I think it was Eddie on a previous Rattling the Bars episode or an interview that he did where he said something that really stuck with me, which is like, you know, from the civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s to the Black Power movement, he said, you know, the moment that black people started rising up and demanding accountability for what white society had done to them for 400 years, that's when the prison started swelling with black bodies, right? And thus, you know, we get the era of mass incarceration, the expansion of the prison industrial complex, you know, famously termed the new Jim Crow.
You have the Attica Rebellion, right? But during that time, in the 70s, you had every major institution, prison in the United States of America has some type of rebellion, which they dubbed Rise. But this was rebellion against inhumane and oppressive prison conditions. So this is what you had coming in, this is what you had in the prison. So when you read about George Jackson and you read about the prison guards killing 3 unarmed individuals in the courtyard, that was common practice in the United States of America, because you had, like in Texas prison, it was, the condition was so bad in Texas prison that a prisoner filed a lawsuit. He wrote it on toilet paper to get the lawsuit out and into the court system in order for them to reverse the inhumane living conditions. So inhumanity and inhumane living conditions in prison, this was common practice. So in the prison, it was like right for prisoners to come together around changing the conditions that they found themselves in. It wasn't necessarily came around a particular ideology. They came around the ideology of we want to be treated better than we're being treated. It wasn't that in Attica, they came together around an ideology that, oh, this is our ideology. No, they came together around, one, that we're being oppressed and dehumanized, and we can't continue to live like this because we're dying off, so we might well die fighting, stand on our feet dying, as opposed to be laying down and just kowtow, because we're going to die.
Man, I got like chills just even thinking about being in that position. But like you said, yeah, it's like that was basically the choice at that point. You get explosions like the Attica Uprising because it's like, well, we're going to die here anyway, and we're being picked off and malnourished, so like, what else do we have to lose at this point? If you could remember the first time that you read Soledad Brother, like, what sort of impression did it leave on you? And how did it change your thinking? Like, what was it about Jackson's story and his writing that struck so many people, including yourself, on the inside?
That's a good point. I remembered I was in the county jail, and I knew the circumstance I was locked up for. The probability of me getting out anytime soon was slim to none. And when I read the Soledad Brothers, what resonated with me was I could understand George, where he came from, the conditions that he lived under. All these things resonated with me because I lived in that same kind of environment. So for me, reading his letters started opening my eyes up to realize that I was that individual that he talked about when he spoke about the goal and objective of the prisoners in the California prison system. William Noel was to change the criminal mentality into a revolutionary mentality, because that's what George had been transformed from, a criminal mentality to a revolutionary. I understood that, and the impact it had on me, it made me want to learn more. It made me want to understand more about what exactly was this that he was talking about. And that opened the door for me to do more reading and more studying, and ultimately led me into a position where I started identifying with certain revolutionary struggles and revolutionary politics.
Thank you so much for watching the Real News Network, where we lift up the voices, stories, and struggles that you care about most. And we need your help to keep doing this work, so please tap your screen now, subscribe, and donate to the Real News Network. Solidarity forever.